And I'm talking with my friend Robert Wolf. He is the editor of Eating in Place, telling the story of local foods. And he is the, I guess, the head honcho at Free River Press.
Yeah.
How about telling us about a few of the other books that you have published? And then let's focus a little bit on your new book you got in the works that sounds really exciting called Heartland Portrait.
Right. Well, when Bonnie and I, after 2.5 years, we left Nashville and we bought a farmhouse in northeast Iowa in the Driftless region, which is full of hills and winding valleys. And I realized...
It's beautiful over there.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful parts of the whole country and unknown.
It is.
Let's keep it that way. Yeah, I didn't say... What? Driftless? What? So I wanted farmers to begin to tell their story. Urban people needed to know what was going on in rural America and what was happening to the food source, because we were still into, it was in the early 90s, but we were still into this farm crisis. The small farmers were still going by the wayside. So I gathered together 4 or 5 farm families. We met every night, Monday night, around a kitchen table during the winter. And after the first winter, we did one book called Voices from the Land. Morning Edition did a wonderful little piece on that, and the Associated Press did a story that went in almost every major daily in the country, and that book took off. Tiny little book, small little book. It was the size of, remember the Pocket Poet series, Ferlinghetti's City Lights?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I wanted that Working Man's Association, because that was the size of the the Wobbly Songbook. That's what that was.
Which you can get along with Eating in Place in the Heartland General Store. We're not talking prices, but both the Wobbly Songbook and Robert Wolf's book are in the Heartland General Store.
So we did, the farmers and I did 2 more books after that. And then small towns began hiring me. And that's when I came up with this formula whereby with 20 people over 3 days, we could produce a small book. So I started doing books for small towns. And then in 1995, I put together the first regional anthology I ever did called Heartland Portrait. And that was a combination of stories from these small towns and the 3 farm books. At the same time, during this period, I was also going down to the Mississippi Delta to collect stories from there. And I've worked with, people from all walks of life down there, including, to my mind, most interestingly, women whose parents had been sharecroppers. So we got some wonderful stories of what it was like living and working on these old plantations. And in the meantime, I was also going out to New York City. I'd go out a couple of times a year to Riverside Church and to a foundation in Teaneck, New Jersey, and collect urban stories. I did one workshop here in Chicago with some folks from the Chicago Tribune and others. We had a mix of social workers. Josh Hoyt, I think, was part of that, and some actors and so forth. And I want to do more here in Chicago because I'd like to do a book called Big City, which is going to have stories from New York.
You better copyright that quick before someone grabs it. It might already have been taken. Let me just ask you one thing. Robert Wolf, in this book, Heartland Portrait, is it something that's already published or it's one you're working on?
This is going to be a second edition.
Okay.
And the second edition is greatly enlarged. The first edition simply had stories from Iowa. But since 1995, I've been doing a lot more workshops in Wisconsin and a lot of workshops up in Minnesota. So and it's all in the Driftless region, which is southeast Minnesota, southwest Wisconsin, little bit of northwest Illinois, and some northeast Iowa. So I wanted to help create a regional identity. I wanted to document America by region. So this is the first full regional anthology. It'll be out this summer, probably most likely within a month.
When they talk about the Kickapoo Mountains up there in Wisconsin, is that part of the same region?
Well, see, that's probably a term that they were using back in the 60s before I ever went out there.
Well, it was even back in the days when they were chasing Black Hawk. The soldiers used that term. But they're, in that southwest corner, there's some kind of mountainous area of Wisconsin, right?
Well, it's very hilly, yeah.
Yeah, real hilly. They call them. Yeah. Some people want to call them mountains. It was Kickapoo, I think, was the word.
Okay, well, that's the Kickapoo, the Kickapoo region, the Kickapoo River Valley, and so forth.
But that's part of the Driftless region.
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
Absolutely. And people in that section of Wisconsin have a real strong regional consciousness. Stores and businesses are Driftless this, Driftless that, Driftless Cafe, Driftless Bookstore.
Well, as someone who's always tempted to put out books and still talking about 10 books that I need to write, I would be curious to know how you as a publisher get these out and about, and how you kind of pump up interest in them, because you know, a million people now have great websites, have lots of information, and I kind of sometimes wonder. Certainly, there are a lot of books on shelves that have never been read, but have been sold. There are also an awful lot of things on the web that people would find very interesting, but how you would find them or know about them, how do you pump up readership, and in this case, a purchasing of your books?
Right, because publishing is in a crisis right now. So what I'm doing, fortunately, I got 4 really excellent volunteers this summer. 3 of them are interns. 2 of them are recent college grads. 1 is going to be a college junior next year. 1 is a middle-aged documentary filmmaker who's helping me. So what we're doing, and what I've wanted to do for a long time, is get these stories on radio read by the writers. So there will be at various lengths. That's one way of doing it, and putting that, say, like up on PRX, that big bulletin board, where radio stations will go around and pick off material that they want. So that's one way. The other thing is I want to put together a series of like 6 half-hour pieces on the new Heartland portrait, because we've got stories from the Mississippi River. We've got a lot of stories written by towboat captains, commercial fishermen, and others. And then we've got stories from small towns, and we've got the farm stories. So we've got, I can do 2 half-hour segments on each of those easily. Okay, so that's one thing. The other now is we're working also on taking the audio that we do for those radio pieces, and we'll create like a 10-minute piece for YouTube on the new book, Heartland Portrait, featuring a lot of video footage, interviews, and some of Bonnie's wonderful lino cuts. And over the years, she's amassed a wonderful portfolio of graphics, lino cuts for our books. We're going to use all the ones that deal with the Midwest, just fill the book with these wonderful cuts that she did.
Well, we have a limited amount of time. All of our guests are pretty exciting. How about, Robert Wolf, you tell us one more thing you want to get out there into the sphere, and we'll publicly invite you back right now to come on the show again.
Great, lovely. Well, I'm also working on a large anthology from New Mexico. I spent 2 years half-time in Santa Fe in northern New Mexico, where I lived for 9 years back in the 60s and 70s, documenting cultural change, because the same loss, that's being experienced in the Midwest, small towns and rural communities, is happening everywhere. And I've been collecting a lot of stories from New Mexico, ranch communities, Hispanic mountain villages, and
how about Tierra Maria, up there where Lopez Tiarina took over the courthouse?
Well, that's a place I'd like to go.
I've actually got some Super 8 footage for you when you're ready.
All right. Okay. There we go.
Because I drove through there. That was something else. You're a great guest, and I'm sure we could talk for a long time. And I really enjoyed this, and I really enjoyed Eating in Place, and I'm looking forward to seeing more books. I encourage people to come check this book out. You can get it at the Heartland. You can also get it you can contact Free River Press at P.O. Box 10, Decorah, Iowa 52101, and I bet you have a website.
Yes, it's riverpress.org.
Thanks so much. Let's have a big round of applause for Robert Wolf.
Thank you.